Lawyers, we recognize General Sessions as occupying the absolute pinnacle of our profession. Jeff Sessions was born in Selma, Alabama, and attended Wilcox County High School in nearby Camden. He earned the rank of Eagle Scout as a youth, and later in life he was recognized as what is called a Distinguished Eagle Scout for his distinguished public service. Jeff Sessions attended college in Montgomery, Alabama, where he was the student body president. You won't be surprised to hear that after college, Jeff Sessions went to law school at the University of Alabama Law School. Roll Tide. I'm sure if you wanted to talk today to Jeff Sessions about Bear Bryant or any other aspect of Alabama football, including Alabama's unexpected Rose Bowl victory in 1926, just up the road here. The Attorney General says he remembers it well. I think I should not comment on that. Anyway, if you talk about Alabama football, I'm pretty sure you'll have a sympathetic ear today. And as a personal aside, I have a niece attending the University of Alabama right now, and I just can't believe how much she loves it. She talks about it all the time. It's all she talks about at family reunions. Well, speaking of other things that might be near and dear to Jeff Sessions' heart, you might ask him about the special white sauce that is used on Alabama barbecue. Now, that's different from the vinegar sauce or the mustard sauce you might find in other southern states. I'm sorry we couldn't have planned for a white sauce barbecue here today, and instead we had to eat sort of a California-based, healthy, southwestern salad, but there you go. Another thing I wanted to point out as I did my research for this assignment today is if you're talking with Jeff Sessions, listen closely, very closely, for any mention of the phrase, "Well, bless your heart," especially if it's delivered with an extreme degree of courtesy. That is your clue that maybe, just maybe, bless your heart actually means something very, very different. Now, General Sessions has worked in and around law enforcement for over almost 40 years. For 14 years, he served as a federal prosecutor, first as an assistant U.S. attorney, and then for 12 years as the United States attorney appointed by President Reagan. Just as another little aside, my daughter Catherine, who's with us today, is an assistant U.S. attorney here in the Central District. I'm glad she's here with us today, but she is mad to be here because some tricky defense lawyers cleverly got a continuance in a trial that was supposed to start today, and she's just champing at the bit to get into that trial. So there's a fellow-hearted person with you. Following his service in the U.S. Attorney's Office, Jeff Sessions served as Attorney General of the state of Alabama. After that, he served for nearly 20 years as a United States Senator with continuous service on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Today, as you know, he serves as the 84th General of the United States. General Sessions, you're here among friends today with so many current and former law enforcement personnel and like-minded believers in law and order. And in case no one else has said it to you today, let me say it. Welcome to Los Angeles. So I was walking into our local criminal court building this morning. I noticed what looked like a few hundred protesters giving Jeff Sessions their own special welcome to Los Angeles. And I could not help but think about what one of our local members of Congress had to say over the weekend. She was widely quoted as saying, quote, "Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere." General Sessions, we salute you. We admire you for your courage in the face of protest and criticism. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I give you General Jeff Sessions. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's good to be with you. And Rick, thanks for those remarks. I think pretty good introduction indeed. I appreciate it. And thank you for your leadership here at the Foundation, the Federalist Society, and Kirkland and Ellis. And I'm told that, that your daughter is indeed here. And we think most of us that have served in the department believe an assistant United States attorney job is the best job in the whole world. I had a 30-year veteran, 25-year veteran yesterday tell me that. He would never want to do anything else in the rest of his life. It's good to see Governor Wilson. Thank you, Governor, for your support and work and advice as we've communicated. He's a man of wisdom and good judgment and clarity of thought, and I value your counsel on a number of matters. Nick Hanna, our new United States Attorney here since January. We really appreciate him. He's experienced in the office. He's leading the office. Just met the team over there, and they're going to do great things. And we're determined to be even more effective in fighting crime. The taxpayers pay us. They want something out of us, and that's what we intend to return to them. And Adam Braverman's here from the Southern District. There's Adam back here, Southern District of California, and he is a charger. He's one of the best, maybe the most aggressive and knowledgeable prosecutor of international cartels and drug gangs and anybody in the country, and we appreciate that. District Attorneys Greg Totten, Summer Stevens, former District Attorney Steve Cooley, and thank you for your book, Steve, and Ed Jagels, and congratulations to our new District Attorneys-elect, Cynthia Zimmer, Janine Paccioni, and thanks to John Cox, who I think maybe was not able to make it. So I want to thank President Rushford for his remarks, and the legal director, Kent Scheidegger, for your strong support for crime victims. It was a good report this morning, or here at noon, and for law enforcement and for the Department of Justice in the courtroom and in the public arena. Speaking of that, you mentioned Attorney General Meese. He really was the leader of the reform of criminal justice in this country. At President Reagan's right hand and later as Attorney General, he was a driving force that transformed federal law enforcement to a degree that's never, ever occurred since the founding of the Republic. And you can be sure I have Attorney General Meese's picture hanging in my conference room. And I consider him one of America's greatest patriots. There's just no doubt about it. And I also was pleased to see the fabulous, wonderful Heather McDonald here. I don't know where Heather's back here in the back. That is I'll say another greatest, the greatest thinker on criminal justice in America today is Heather McDonald. You're glad to have her in your group for sure. And actually, and if you're in big trouble, you need a defense, she's a good one to have on your side. Thank you for your friendship, Heather. So this group stands up for the idea that we can bring down crime rates through smart policies and more sophisticated policing and law enforcement, and that is exactly correct. You know as well as I do that crime rates aren't like the tides. They just go up and down regardless of what all we do, that we can make a difference, and we impact those things. And I really believe that. I had a dinner last night with FBI Director Chris Wray, who was here. By the way, Chris Wray has taken over the FBI, was appointed by the President. He's got a new Assistant Director of the FBI. He's got a new legal counsel, a new chief of staff, a new press person, and they've got a good leadership team over there with integrity and decency. It was good to see others last night too. So on the behalf of the President, I especially want to thank all of you for your voice in speaking out on law enforcement issues and on immigration issues. This immigration question is a decisive issue for our time. As the President often says, a country without borders is not a country. I don't know why that's so hard for some people to understand. In the United States, we have the most generous immigration laws in the world. We make 1.1 million people each year. We put them on a path to citizenship. They get a green card, permanent legal residence in the United States. Another 700,000 come here just to take jobs as part of the work visa programs that are out there. Many of them stay for a number of years. And we've got another 500,000 who come to take spots in colleges and universities. We're not talking about shutting the United States off from the world. This is a total miscommunication from those who attack fundamentally just simple legal immigration. In the United States, we have, as I said, generous laws, but we have limits on what we can accept, as every nation worthy of the name understands too. And yet, when we enforce any limits, we get attacked by the media, the so-called elites, their special interest allies, political warriors, and open borders advocates. They're never happy with anything. But I'm convinced that the people of this country support these efforts. In the 2016 elections, voters said loud and clear they wanted a lawful system of immigration that serves the national interest. They said that we waited long enough. They said they were disgusted with politicians who promise one thing and do another. And I believe that's right. I believe that's good and decent and right. There's nothing wrong with having a lawful system of immigration in our country. And I believe that this is one of the main reasons President Trump won. He promised to tackle this crisis that had been ignored or made worse by so many before him. And now he's doing exactly what the American people asked him to do, and the left doesn't like it. It's just that simple. They are fighting desperately to stop the good and decent wishes of the American people from being carried out, and really carrying out the intent of the entire Immigration and Nationality Act. It was never an open borders act, for heaven's sakes. It was a fairly rational system was set up. It's just been attacked over the years. There have been loopholes found. Things that weren't anticipated are now being exploited, and we have a very difficult time trying to enforce the principles and policies of that act. These people don't like it when we deport people, even people who commit additional crimes after they've entered the country. They don't like it when we stop people at the border, even those who smuggle children into the country. They don't like interior enforcement, and they don't like workplace enforcement. No matter what we do, they're not happy. They complain. This is they will happily support any bill, any law, as long as it doesn't work. If it works, they oppose it. It's mean-spirited. It's evil. If it closes loopholes, it can't be done. You're wrong and mean and spirited if you're for it. From coast to coast, perhaps especially on this coast, there are politicians who declare that having any border at all is mean-spirited. The vice chairman of the National Democratic Committee recently wore a T-shirt that says, quote, "I don't believe in borders," close quote. At least that was honest. Most of them claim they do and don't. So I wonder what this person's neighbors think about borders or boundary lines. The name of the group that organized the caravan that was going to stampede our border is People Without Borders. The Attorney General of this state, Javier Becerra, says, "There's really no difference between my parents and illegal immigrants except a piece of paper." Well, piece of paper can be important, right? Paperwork means you're complying with the law or not complying with the law, and it's important. It's a shame that I must say this to the top law enforcement officer in California. I got to tell you, that's a disappointment to have to explain that legal principle. Well, a piece of paper is what keeps the Attorney General in his house, I suppose, because it gives him title to his property within certain limits. In Alabama, we think property limits are real. So last week, a candidate for governor of New York said that we should abolish ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement Office. And she's got 25% of the vote in one of the polls. A few months ago, I paid a visit to Sacramento. You may have heard about that visit. While I was there, the mayor of Oakland called illegal aliens law-abiding Oaklanders. By definition, that's not true if they entered the country unlawfully. By 2013, Hillary Clinton said in one of the speeches, a secret speech somewhere, quote, "My dream is an hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders," close quote. This is the presidential nominee of a major political party in the United States. These are just the explicit, overt examples. There are many of other examples of politicians who want to sound like moderates, but whose votes and actions evidence an open borders ideology. It's just that simple. Apparently, even the Libertarian Cato Institute is seduced by some of this argument. So the rhetoric we hear from the other side on this issue, as on many others, has become radicalized. We hear views on television today that are on the lunatic fringe, frankly. And what is perhaps more galling is the hypocrisy. These same people live in gated communities, many of them, and are featured at events where you have to have an ID to even come in and hear them speak. They like the little security around themselves. And if you try to scale the fence, believe me, they'll be even too happy to have you arrested and separated from your children, if they would like to see that. So they want borders in their lives, but not in yours, and not in the American people's lives. And that's why the American people are sick of the lip service and the hypocrisy. They are sick of politicians who abandon promises as soon as the mainstream media criticizes them. Now, they've seen it for decades, and now they're supporting the president, who's on their side for change. The President Trump has been quite sensible in this matter. He made a generous offer to those who oppose a real fix in Congress, and he offered to give DACA recipients legal status if we can just build a wall, close the maddening loopholes in our legal system, and switch from chain migration and the visa lottery to a more merit-based system. What's extreme about that? Open borders is what's extreme. Their refusal of this offer should be baffling to any objective observer of the scene. The president simply asks that they agree to a serious solution to the lawlessness problem. Why wouldn't we want to end illegality, I ask? What is it about ending illegality that causes such an uproar, especially when we have such a generous legal system of immigration? On Wednesday, President Trump ordered this administration to ensure that when we apprehend illegal aliens at the border and hold them for criminal prosecutions or to adjudicate their immigration claims, we do what we can to keep the families together. And we're going to do that. It's not easy, but we're working at it. How did the open borders crowd respond to this? What did they say? No, they don't want them to be held. They don't want them to be deported at all. They want them to be released into the country. Well, does that surprise anybody, really, if you've observed what's happening over the years? And when they win, this group, they make demands, and when they lose, they make demands, and there's a lesson in it, I think. We know which side of the debate is radical. The so-called elites will always find an excuse to attack President Trump. They will not be satisfied as long as we are enforcing our borders, as long as we are placing any effective limits on the immigration system. But in spite of the critics, we are following the president's executive order, and the president is listening to the American people. On Thursday, the Department of Justice filed a request right here in the Central District of California to modify the terms of the Flores consent decree, which is problematic, I have to tell you, and which keeps us from detaining alien children with their parents for more than 20 days while their asylum cases are pending. It is a complex and difficult thing, but it is a real problem for us. We are asking the court to let ICE officers detain illegal alien children together with their parents or legal guardian in a family residential facility. So we're working on this, but ultimately we're going to need Congress's help. In 2015, the Department of Justice under President Obama also tried to modify this consent decree for the same reason, but it was denied. And so the word got out and spread abroad that if you crossed our border illegally, you would not be detained as long as you brought a child with you. To not be detained, you have to know, means that you're released into the country of the United States after some Border Patrol agent has had to apprehend this group and deal with them and process them. They're just then released into the country and asked to come back for a court hearing, and they might come back, they might not come back. This is not a sound way to operate. And in fact, if they are released, it appears in most cases, and they lose their asylum claim, they're still left in the country on bail, not likely to leave the country. So one way or the other, they tend to win in this situation. The number of people crossing our border, you would not be surprised to learn if you think about it, with children went up dramatically. The word got out. In 2013, there were 15,000 who came that way. This year, we're on pace, 2018, for that number to be 88,000, almost 6 times. So when you create a loophole like this, it's an attraction for illegality. And we know how well the catch and release system is working. Last year, there were 40,000 removal orders issued for people that didn't show up for their hearings. So they don't bother to show up for their hearings. They've been released on bail, and they're ordered, deported, but nobody is going into Los Angeles with somebody estimated 1 million people unlawfully here to try to find those individuals. It's not happening. And it's no wonder. Our broken immigration laws are telling people that they can, in fact, come here illegally. Why wait in line? Why file your claim and wait your turn? If we don't fix our laws, then the flow of illegal immigration is not going to stop. And with it, the gangs, drug cartels, human trafficking occurs, even trafficking of children. That's why the President made clear that we're going to do everything in our power to avoid separating families, but we're going to work to prosecute all of those adults who come here unlawfully. By definition, we ought to have zero illegal immigration in America, just like we want to have zero other crimes in this country. But we have more than 1 million illegal aliens, it's reported here in Los Angeles. It is widely estimated there are more illegal aliens in California than there are people in New Mexico. There's no other American law with this level of illegality. This is a big group of people. Too many of them have also committed additional crimes here. By definition, every one of those crimes was preventable. Thousands of illegal aliens are sitting in California jails that you pay for. 39,000 are in federal prisons. We only have about 180,000 people in federal prisons. Another 16,000 are in custody of the United States Marshal, pending trial or deportation. These are people who had to be tracked down often and to be arrested by our federal law enforcement officers, every time putting them and the people that went with them at great risk. That's not right, not when they could have been picked up safely at a detention center or a state prison. Here are just a few of the people arrested by ICE this month for crimes this month that would have been prevented with effective law enforcement. At the border, a gang member who's been convicted of rape, a man convicted of assault with intent to commit rape, a man convicted of assaulting an officer, beating his wife, and assault with a deadly weapon. I could go on and on. These are the kind of people that sanctuary policies want to keep in California. Why would they want to do that? I just ask over and over. Yes, we can argue about the law, but why you as a mayor of a city or the legislator in the state of California would want to say that federal law that calls for the deportation of someone who commits a crime in this country, who's here illegally, why would you object to that? Who are you protecting in that? So the open borders politicians say they're being compassionate. But where is their compassion for the rape victim, the crime victim? How do they explain to this lady that what happened was because of their alleged compassion for the rapist? So it may sound nice, but these, in effect, if you think about it, are open border policies. At their root, they are essentially a rejection of all immigration law. If you want to deport a person who enters the country illegally and who commits another crime, then who will you deport? President Obama's administration always said priority number one was deporting illegal immigrants who commit additional crimes in our country. Under sanctuary policy, someone who illegally crosses the border on Monday, arrives in Sacramento or San Francisco or Los Angeles on Wednesday, is home free, never to be removed from the country, even if they imported a pocket full of heroin from Mexico. This is what's happening in this country. Police are often forced to release criminals back into the community, no matter what the crime. Police may be forced to release pedophiles, rapists, murderers, drug dealers, arsonists back into the communities where they had no right to be here anyway, rather than being deported as the law provides. That has real consequences. ICE tells us that they are able to locate only about 6% of the criminals they ask sanctuary jurisdictions to turn over to them. So if they let them sneak out the back door of the jail back into the community, they're only able to find about 6% of those so they can be deported properly. And you can understand the difficulties our ICE officers would have. The other 94% are walking free, often on their way to another victim. If they won't allow us to deport someone who enters illegally, then the question really remains, what do you believe in? Do you believe anybody should be deported? And that sends a message around the world. It's not being lost. People in developing nations don't know the laws on our books, but they see what we do, and so do gangs and drug cartels. They see whether we deport criminals or don't deport criminals. The word gets around. They see whether we reward illegal aliens with governmental benefits and welfare programs or not. That's why under President Trump's leadership, the Department of Justice is working to end sanctuary policies. In March, we did file that suit you talked about, and you have stood with us all the way, this group has, and we are grateful for that. Thank you for your strong amicus brief, and thank you for your strong support. I'm confident that together we're going to win that case. Yeah, it has been settled since 1819. A state cannot actively attempt to undermine the execution of federal law or discriminate against the federal government. American people are with us on this issue. One poll showed that 80% of the American people oppose sanctuary policies. Most cities all over the country are not sanctuary cities. You may have you think so, but the overwhelming majority are not. And so we've also supported the Texas governor and legislature in banning cities in Texas from being sanctuary cities, and that case has been upheld. We've stopped rewarding sanctuary cities as we are able with taxpayers' dollars. If sanctuary cities want to receive federal law enforcement grants, they should stop impeding federal law enforcement grants, actions at least, I think. Certainly not too much to ask of them. So this is the Trump era. We are enforcing our laws again. We know whose side we are on. So does this group. And we're on the side of the police. And we're on the side of the public safety of the American people. The radical, extremist, open borders crowd should declare whose side they are on. But look, we are resolute. We understand our mission. We're going to keep fighting with the support of President Trump and with your strong support for police and the rule of law. I'm confident that we will turn the tide, the roll tide, and keep the American people safe. There's one more thing I want to mention. I got to say we had a good day this morning. As you've heard by now, we had an important victory in the United States Supreme Court. If you remember, we had leadership from the previous administration refusing to enforce the president's actions because they didn't believe it was defensible under the best view of what the law is. We had judges issuing nationwide injunctions because they said that the president had not acted lawfully. And of course, there were those in the media who said there was no way for this to be upheld. And yet today, after more than a year, the Supreme Court ruled correctly, I firmly believe, just the opposite. This decision is critical to ensuring the continued authority of President Trump and all future presidents to protect the American people. It is the president, after all, who is elected and entrusted with the safety and security of the American people and to enforce an immigration system that serves the national interest. He's the chief executive. And, you know, we respect courts and their legal opinions, and we've always tried to be respectful of them. But they're not a policy-setting branch. They don't get to set the policies for the country. So we're very pleased with the outcome today and hope that this goes some way toward ending the practice of these broad nationwide injunctions, which in my view gravely threaten the rule of law in the country. A single judge, a district judge out of 600 can issue one of these rulings and stop the entire government of the United States. In this case, it took over a year for the Supreme Court to rule on this matter. In the meantime, there was great cost and turmoil caused by these lower courts deciding to prevent the president from carrying out what he perceived as his lawful duty. These judges are too often failed to respect the representatives in Congress and the executive branch and instead claim the power to basically set policy. A power that courts do not have. There is just no question in my mind that these injunctions should end and to keep activists from both sides of the aisle from paralyzing governmental action through political litigation that they couldn't accomplish at the ballot box. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you for your support for law and order, public safety, the rule of law in this country. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you. Thank you all, and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our annual meeting. Thank you for being here. And one more time, General Sessions, thank you so much.
let me just ask all of you to please leave your name tags on the table out front as you leave. Thank you so much.